Joe and Cody. I am Joe Skipper with eXp Realty out of Oregon, and my friend here, Cody Wilhelm with Residential Mortgage, is with me. How are you, Cody?
Hey guys, doing good. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing well. I
Yeah.
hadn't had a chance to talk to you, but I'm trying the beard thing out. I don't know if you
Oh, you
noticed it or
are.
not. Like I don't have it as nice as yours is, but I'm
Well,
hoping to get there. Like,
this has been in the works for years. You want to know how I
oh,
actually
okay.
started it? I'd
Yeah.
never had a beard until I met my wife, and it was like the first week after meeting her. She's
Uh,
like, "Hey, have you ever?" Because I was bald then, so I was just like a full head of bald. And she's like, "Hey, have you ever thought about growing out any facial hair?" So I took that cue, and I
yes.
have I have never shaved my face since then. So it's
It's the
been
light suggestion of like,
yeah,
you don't look good how you are. Why don't you try
right.
something else?
But maybe you could cover up some of the ugly.
Maybe. Oh, you gotta love it. At least she wasn't
Yeah,
blunt about it. Like,
I know, right?
yeah, but I'm trying it out. We'll see how it goes. See
I
what
like it.
negative or positive comments I get.
I think the hardest part for me
Uh,
was like that first week because it gets to
yeah,
be kind of itchy
yeah,
after 4
yeah,
days or so, and then I'm like, I don't. That's where I'd get before, and I just like, okay, this is annoying, and I'd shave it. And
yeah.
once you get past that point, then you're good to go. But
Yeah,
yeah,
well, it takes
it's
me
it's a
like
game
14
changer.
years to grow hair, facial hair. So this has been already weeks in the making. It's no one can see it. So, like,
Mine will be gray by the time yours comes in.
but hey, man. Well, I just hope you had a good weekend. I just had
Yeah, it's
we
good.
just had been talking about the thing that came up. I just saw it quickly on Instagram and
Hmm.
TikTok and things about someone predicting or the Fed's predicting that rates are going to drop, continuously over the next couple of years, which is a good sign for buyers and just the market in general. But
Hmm.
yeah, did you hear anything about that, or what's your thoughts on it, or if you've heard any more details than I have?
Yeah, I did hear about that, and I haven't heard anything that is official. It's kind of speculation, but usually when there's smoke, there's fire for the most part with something like that. So what I saw, if it was the same thing that you saw, it was the guess, projection, expectation, whatever you want to call it, that the Fed would possibly lower rates 5 times in 2024 at 1/4% each. So be looking at a 1.25 potential decrease in rates over the next 12 months or so. So,
Okay, cool.
which some of the charts I've seen, and again, none of it is from the Fed. So it's all just kind of reading the markets and everything. Have been some stronger projections of rates possibly decreasing a small percent of chance in January, but likely looking like March. So I know the
Okay.
Fed meets again on the 13th of December here, just another week or so. So maybe we'll get some more clarity there. But their current stance is we need to hold tight. We need to get inflation down. But some of the jobs information and market data is starting to, I think it's starting to put a little bit of pressure because it does look like the job market is softening. A lot more openings. Unemployment's still pretty low, but in general, it looks like we're starting to see the data that we need to see in order for the Fed to hopefully change course and maybe start bringing rates down in the near future.
Okay, cool. Well, on that
Yeah.
note, we had some questions come in last week and today about mortgage rates and different things from people,
Right.
followers on our social media. So we'll get into that. If you guys have any questions live right now, feel free to shoot it in the uh, text or chat box or anything like that, whatever social media realm you're on. Just ask the question and Cody and I will get to it. But the
Hmm.
questions, they were actually good questions. Let's start with this one. We heard that interest rates are going to go down next year, so we may hold off on buying until then. But you guys have mentioned before that the competition will go up when rates drop. So is it better to go in now or wait and then pay higher prices for the actual home in the near future?
Mm.
So the ultimate question of the waiting game or go for it. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a good question. That's definitely a question that's been asked a lot this year. Um, it sounds cliche and cheesy, but I think the best time to buy is if you're ready to buy. Like
Yeah.
just talking with a client yesterday about something kind of similar to that, and it's you have two different markets, right? The market that we're in right now, it's a little softer, so the sellers are willing to contribute closing costs, maybe they'll bring the price down a little bit more. Sellers are a lot more willing to do what they need to do to sell. But as a buyer, your interest rates are higher, your payments higher than what they were in the past. So you're kind of running into this. If you can afford to do it now, I think absolutely do it now. Because if you do wait, like so many other people are likely doing and going to do, um, as soon as those rates come down, you jump right back into the super competitive. Once sellers start to see that they're getting a bunch of offers, they're not going to be nearly as likely to pay closing costs to drop the price. So it's kind
Yeah.
of one of those, like, might have to deal with a little bit of pain for a few months, for a year or however long it might take. But ultimately, if it's going to save you 20, 50, $70,000, I think it's probably worth it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I had a client asking the same sort of thing this morning of, do I wait to do it or do I wait? And I think ultimately, I know it sounds stupid and it's not a great answer, but it is like when you're ready to go, I would say right now is the best time as a buyer if you can afford it. Because exactly what you said is the competition's less. There's not a lack of buyer demand out there. They're just being priced out. So
Mm.
it's once those rates come down, buyers find it more affordable and they can get in the rates they want. They can get in the monthly payment they want. And like you said, they're okay because the rate's lower. They can pay a little bit more. The competition continues to build, and then you
Hmm.
you kind of get into that same sort of priced out scenario. What I said to the client this morning is yes, buyers are waiting. It's not a matter of just there's just no buyers. Everyone's
Yeah.
happy in their home and everything's fine. It's that they can't afford it. So once and they're all hearing the same things we're hearing is like, oh well, the rates might go down, in a few months. I'm just going to wait it out. I'm going to wait it out, and then what you're going to see is the competition come in. So it sucks to
Yep.
say there's not a great answer, but it's like if you can afford it now, I think there's less competition now. More seller concessions. Sellers are willing to do more right now than maybe when rates dropped and there's 15 people in their house in the first week because rates dropped down to a
Yeah.
to a thing we haven't seen in a while. So I would say
Sure.
buying now is probably the best if you can afford it. But
Yeah, if you can afford it, because I mean, you think about looking back at whether it's a year or 5 or 10 years, whatever that looks like, waiting to buy in real estate has never really seemed to pay off. I think there was
yeah,
that initial concern that, like, I'm going to buy at the top of the market
yeah,
and we're going to have 2008 all over again and I'm going to lose everything. And I mean, that was definitely the problem that was had in 2008 is no longer a thing. I mean,
yeah,
there are plenty of restrictions on the mortgage side, which is great because it prevents that from happening again.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, waiting, you're there's just no good time to really
yeah,
wait it out in real estate. So
yeah. Okay, well, on the next question we have is we are going to use a VA loan for our next purchase, but have heard from some friends that the VA loan may not look the best to sellers. Now, why is that?
mm, mm,
I I guess I can start on my side of things. I don't find that really true. I do know that the VA is a little more strict with their appraisals, and I don't know what you can say or can't say about that. But I've never had a real issue with it. I know people are going to say, "Oh no, I had issues with an appraisal. I had issues with a VA loan," but I don't. I think they're pretty solid loans, and I don't see a big need. I think what we did run into in the COVID times was that because the prices were so high and people were offering significantly over what the historical market had showed, is you
hmm
did have VA appraisers balking at those crazy prices. But I think I
mm,
found that with most appraisers were like, we can't keep pushing this to this level of,
yeah.
of price. The home isn't worth it. So I don't know. What's your thoughts? I haven't had any bad issues with the VA, and I think they're a solid loan.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I That's one of the weird things about VA loans. They get a weird image to them. They have kind of a bad rap, right? Like, it is the best possible loan, in my opinion, for a buyer because it's pretty flexible, zero down. I mean, it's a great loan option, and to be honest, in the time that I have done this, and it's not like I'm a VA expert and do a million of them, but I've done a fair share of VA loans, and I've never had a VA appraisal that was anything different than a FHA loan. Or FHA, VA, they're government loans, so they are There is a little bit more of a critique with them when it comes to the appraisal, because they're just, something like peeling paint outside. That's not going to get likely called out on a conventional loan, but
Yeah.
FHA and VA it does. So
Yeah.
FHA and VA are very similar when it comes to the appraisal requirements. So I don't think there's any. I can understand that there is a stigma for some reason or another,
Yeah.
because I know that to be true. I've heard it many times, and I've tried to tell people, like, look, they're no different than.
Yeah.
Yes, they're technically different, but like, I've never had anything that was on a VA loan with the appraisal or anything where we're like, oh man, if we just weren't
Yeah.
doing a VA loan, we would have been fine here. So
Yeah, for
I think
sure.
it just kind of has a bad rap. And there was a time there where the sellers, were expected to pay the buyer's closing costs, because with a VA loan, there's something called non-allowable fees, but those are really unique fees that don't typically go to the buyer anyway. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
got a bad rap to it, but it shouldn't. So I think you see it a little bit more from the seller's perspective. I know I see it more from the buyer's perspective, and
Yeah,
as the loan officer, I'm like, there is nothing that you should be worried about here. As long as the house is not falling apart,
for
then you're
sure.
good to go.
Yeah, if it's really just the condition of the home. If there's a really bad home, then you kind of think, okay, well, a VA is just not gonna
Yeah,
buy into that. So, but I think overall it's kind of a silly thought. I know people are gonna say, oh, I had terrible issues, but
sure.
overall the VA is
Yeah.
not a bad loan. I think the condition of the home is
Hmm.
the big deal. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And most of
um,
the stuff too, I will say, on appraisals, um, if it is something home related, even if the appraiser says, "Hey, these things do not fit the mold for VA," it's not a no. That just means that those things need to be fixed, right? So
yeah,
like
yeah,
scraping the peeling paint, maybe the deck outside needs a railing. Go put
hmm,
up a 2x4 railing. Spend a couple $100, and now it's going to fit the VA guideline.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
not anything that's crazy. So
yeah. I agree.
yeah.
Okay, okay. So now, the next question we got was, with rates how they are, and they seem to be ever changing.
Mhm.
When can I officially lock in a rate? At what point, as a buyer, are you allowed to lock in your rate? And I
Good
would follow up
question.
with that and say, how long does that lock or last?
Yep, good questions. Okay, so when you're locking a rate for a mortgage, you have to lock once you get under contract for that property. So the rate lock itself is locked to the property. So a little different than, say, an auto loan, right? They approve you for this much, and then here's your interest rate. And there's not a locking process with that. It's just you as the buyer. Here's what you get. It's similar on the mortgage side, but it is locked to the property. So you can't lock it until you're under contract for that. And there are different lock times. So a normal lock period would be 30 days, because that's usually about what it takes to close the whole transaction of the mortgage. So 30 days is usually the norm. If you have something unique, maybe you're going to go 45 days or 60 days, because you're dealing with a short sale or something where it's just going to drag out a little bit longer. But you lock according to how much time you think you're going to need. And a lot of people don't realize as well is you can extend your lock. So say you locked it for 30 days, and for whatever reason, you're not going to close on the home until a week after the 30 days. Well, you can still extend that lock. There's just going to be a cost to it, because when you locked that loan, you locked that interest rate on 30 days. And so the market, everything is hedged for that timeline. So now you need to buy another week off the market that was 30 days ago. So it's not a complicated process. I probably make
Yeah.
it sound more complicated than it really is, but it's a few clicks of a button on our end, and boom, there we're extended, good to go. So
Okay.
I would, in most cases, I would say lock it as soon as you can.
Yeah.
We are finally, it feels like, maybe starting to hit a little bit of a stride of like the interest rates coming down, and we're not in this volatile, like, you don't know if they're going to be up 1/4% today or down 1/4% tomorrow. Like, it's been really unpredictable. Now
Yeah.
we're starting to kind of level out a little bit, and so it's not quite as got to jump on it now.
Yeah.
But it's still a really good idea, because it's not something that you want to stress about and worry about. So
Okay. Okay.
Lock it as soon as you get under contract.
Okay. Well, we have one more question, and I know we're going to go a little bit over, but I want to get this
Okay.
question answered. They are looking to buy in the next year and have 10,000 in cash ready for closing costs. Is this enough for our closing costs? It's kind of a loaded question, but what's your thoughts?
Yeah. Closing costs are in general, they're going to range, I'd say, $10,000 to $12,000, right? If you budget for that, then you're probably going to be fine. The big factor that really changes it, so property taxes. Obviously, property taxes vary per area. What your price of your home is. If you're buying something that's got lower property taxes, then your closing costs are going to be a lot less because when we have to collect for your escrow account, we can be collecting up to 12, 15 months in Oregon, which means out of your closing costs, you might have four or five or $6,000 just right there.
Yeah.
That's not even part of the other stuff. So $10,000, yeah, I would say in general that would likely be enough. Um, might be a little bit under, but again, that kind of just depends on if you're buying a $350,000 house or a $850,000
Hmm.
house. The actual closing cost fees are usually about the same when it comes to those two variances. The biggest thing is part of your closing costs are what we call prepaids, which is going to be your homeowner's insurance and your property taxes, and then the prepaid interest for that month. So that's where the big variable comes into play is how much is your insurance, how much are your property taxes, and what time of the month are you closing? Because that could be, again, that can be a $3,000 to $4,000 swing just depending on what you have there. So um,
Okay.
normally I'd say 2% of your purchase price will be about what you need. But again, that kind of varies. So
Yeah. And I would say on my end, on the real estate side, that can always be factored into when we negotiate on an offer, especially now that it's less competitive for buyers. We've seen a lot more of seller concessions on helping with those closing costs. Back in COVID times, you never asked for that. You were
no
paying
kidding.
everything. You were paying every dime. Like,
Yes.
you almost
And
paid
you
the
were
seller's moving
overpaying for
fees.
everything.
And so, yeah, you were paying for dinners for the seller. But
Yeah.
now it's a little bit more on the buyer side. So there are things we can do on the real estate side to kind of put it in our offer to kind of help the seller or get the seller to pay some of that. So,
Yeah. And that's a good thing to bring up to kind of just to wrap it all up too, is as a buyer having that conversation with you as the real estate agent beforehand, before putting the offer together on, hey, what does that look like? How much do you have in closing costs between your down payment and your closing costs? Are you going to have any money left over?
yeah,
Because have the conversation with you, and you might be able to put something in, like you said, and have an opportunity to roll some of that stuff in and not just deplete all your savings.
for sure. Okay, well, those are the questions, Cody. That's what we
All
have for
right.
the day.
I like it. Nice to
It's
get some
good to see
questions fired
you.
in
I'm
there.
gonna I'm gonna work on the beard a little bit more. See if I
Yeah.
can fit your mold there.
We're
Like,
gonna need to do a screenshot, and we'll do a week by week progression and see.
oh man, it'll take longer than that to see any
Yeah,
progression, I'm sure. But hey, it was good to see you, man. We
you
will
too.
talk. Have a good weekend, and we'll chat with all of you guys. If you guys have any questions or any issues about loan stuff, give Cody a call. If you don't have any of his contact info, shoot me a text or whatever, and I'll get that to you. If you have any real estate needs, shoot me a text or give me a call. Until next Wednesday, if you have any questions or anything that you want answered live online next Wednesday, let us know and we can answer those questions. But other than that, that's all I
Yeah,
got, Cody.
keep them coming. I love it. I love getting some of
Yeah,
those
that's good
questions.
stuff. Okay, well, we will talk soon and yeah, have a good weekend.
All right, man. You too. We'll see you.
See ya.